We all know about the cold winters of Delhi. The chilling cold makes the city look incredibly beautiful. But in this cold, we also witness something else, a thick fog that blankets the entire city like a heavy sheet. But what if this fog brought with it something that could change your life forever? This is the story of Yavin and his friends. Yavin and his friends were fed up with Delhi's pollution and decided to escape the city for a while. After a few days of planning, they hired a cab and left for Himachal early in the morning at 4 a.m. The driver who arrived to pick them up was cheerful and full of energy. In no time, he befriended everyone. They had been on the road for about 4 hours and it was now 8 a.m. The sky was still dark. Suddenly, they noticed a thick blanket of fog ahead, so dense that the road disappeared into it. Yavin noticed that the driver who had been smiling a moment ago had suddenly gone silent and serious. His face had turned pale. Yavin thought the driver might be nervous about driving through the fog. He placed a hand on the driver's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, just drive slowly and we'll get through this fog." But then, the driver looked at Yavin with a nervous expression and said in a trembling voice, "Please keep the windows closed as we pass through this fog. Whatever you do, don't open them." The driver was so frightened that Yavin and his friends couldn't help but laugh. But the driver quickly explained, "The place we are in, it never gets foggy. And when fog does come, it brings something else with it. Something deceptive, a lie, an illusion." Yavin and his friends dismissed it as superstition and continued on their way. As they entered the fog, it was much thicker than they had expected. The driver kept driving slowly, but no one could see anything ahead. Suddenly, Riya, one of Yavin's friends, began to feel uneasy. She could barely breathe. Forgetting the driver's warning, she rolled down the window and stuck her head out. As soon as she did, she could breathe again, but the fog had now entered the car. Seconds later, Riya froze in shock. The car was still moving forward, but she was the only one inside. Yavin, Ravi, and the driver were all gone. The car kept moving on its own. Panic-stricken, Riya tried to open the door, but it was locked. She screamed for help, but no one was around. Soon, the car slowly came to a stop, and the door unlocked by itself. Without thinking, Riya quickly opened the door and ran outside. But she could see nothing but thick fog. She screamed and begged for help, her heart pounding in her chest. Then in the distance, she saw a dark shadow. It looked like a giant figure. Riya ran towards it, hoping it would be a person who could help. But no matter how fast she ran, the shadow always stayed the same distance away. Suddenly, she felt something cold and dark behind her. She turned around, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Standing behind her was a 12-foot-tall, dark figure. Riya froze, unable to move, her fear overwhelming her. Then, without warning, she was pushed from behind and fell to the ground. But Yavin, Ravi, and the driver were still in the car. When Riya had opened the window, she had passed out, and the driver quickly told Ravi to close the window. Yavin and Ravi tried to wake Riya, but the driver kept repeating, "The window should never have been opened. It should never have been opened." Yavin, growing frustrated with the driver, wanted to get Riya to the hospital as fast as possible. He urged the driver to speed up. The driver complied, pressing down on the accelerator. But suddenly, a girl appeared in front of the car, and despite the high speed, they collided with her. The impact caused the driver to slam on the brakes. Yavin rushed out of the car to check on the girl. When he turned her over, his heart skipped a beat. The girl lying on the road, covered in blood, was none other than Riya. Yavin was confused and terrified. Riya was in the car with him, but when he checked, the car was empty. He couldn't make sense of it. The fear was overwhelming. He picked Riya's body up and placed her back in the car, then sat in the driver's seat and started driving again. But as he drove through the thick fog, the same dark figure appeared in front of the car, and Yavin lost control of the wheel. The car crashed into a tree. The next morning, their car was found crashed into a tree. Yavin, Ravi, the driver, and Riya had survived the fog, but the shock had broken Yavin's mind. The blow to his head had affected his mental stability, and Riya, too, was deeply traumatized. Now, everywhere she went, she saw the same dark figure. The next time you find yourself in the fog, remember, never ever open the car window.